Right, so welcome everyone to another of the Teaching Academy PD series. This morning we're into our first week of teaching in 2026-60, and we have a session today being run by staff from DLS. We're joined by Rebecca Fabry and Lorraine Rose, and they will be taking us through NotebookLM, the tool. I won't say any more about the tool. I'm going to leave that all obviously with the experts in that space, but I know a lot of you have been looking forward to this. So at that point, I'm going to hand over to Beck and Lorraine.
Thanks, Lachlan. And morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our session on using NotebookLM to enhance teaching and learning. I'm Beck Fabry, and I look after the learning and teaching support provided by the library, and I'm joined by my colleague and co-presenter today, faculty librarian Lorraine Rose. So today we're just going to explore NotebookLM as a practical tool for teaching preparation and to support student learning as well. So we're going to explore what it does well, where its limitations are, and how it can be used responsibly within teaching practice. The key theme is that NotebookLM can help organise, analyse and transform information, but it doesn't replace your teaching expertise, professional judgment or decision making. The session's designed to be practical and exploratory, so please do think about your own subjects and contexts as we go along today. All right, I'd just like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the lands on which we live and work together. I pay my respects to elders within First Nations communities and acknowledge the continuity of cultures, languages, leadership and knowledge systems. And I'd like to personally acknowledge that I'm coming to you today in this virtual space from the lands of the Wiradjuri people. Okay, so by the end of today's session, the goal is that you'll have a clear understanding of what NotebookLM is designed to do, where its boundaries are, and how to make informed decisions about using it in teaching and learning. So we'll look at what NotebookLM does and does not do. We'll look at how to apply the secure framework before uploading material to NotebookLM. We'll look at how to identify suitable source material. And we'll look at some examples of teaching and learning uses as well. And then at the end, we've got a simple prompting activity that we hope you can adapt for your own context. Before we get started, just thought I might check in and see if any of you have used NotebookLM before. If you have, maybe pop it in the chat or give us a thumbs up. Yeah, there's a few of you there. That's great. If you haven't used it, that's perfectly fine. We hope that this session will provide you a starting point to explore the platform. And if you've already used NotebookLM, please feel free to share your experiences as we go along today. Okay, so before we talk about what you can do with NotebookLM, let's start by looking at what makes it different from other AI tools. So NotebookLM is an AI-powered research and learning assistant developed by Google. What makes it different from a general chatbot is that it works only from sources that you choose and provide. So rather than answering from general training, it builds a notebook around your selected materials that might include things like an open textbook chapter or a teaching note you might have written for yourself. From these, it can then generate all sorts of resources like summaries, study guides, glossaries, FAQs, quizzes, revision questions, audio overviews, and the list goes on, all sorts of other learning materials. That's why it's often referred to as a source-grounded tool, and it's useful in the education context because it encourages starting from trusted materials rather than generating content from, who knows where. So this actually reduces the Gen AI issue that causes a lot of concern around producing hallucinations. But we've got to keep in mind that source grounded doesn't necessarily equal perfect. So it can still oversimplify, miss nuance, misread emphasis, or produce outputs that need refinement. So we like to think of it as a drafting or a brainstorming partner rather than a finished resource generator. Okay, so NotebookLM works best when we treat it as the middle of a process, not as the whole process itself. Before using it, we need to choose safe and permitted sources, During use, NotebookLM helps by responding to questions about those sources, or perhaps summarizing, comparing sources, or creating artifacts or study supports based on those artifacts. And then after use, what we would do is review, edit, and decide how that output fits the intended learning purpose and how we would share it. So the key judgment points are around the sources that are inputted and then what it does with those outputs. And then, so that's around how we review, check, edit, and share those outputs. Next up, we'll have a look at the secure framework and how it can help with those judgment points. So secure gives us a nice quick pause opportunity before uploading material or sharing outputs. Now there's a lot of info on that slide. I'm not going to read every item. We will pop the slides into the chat a bit later in the session. But the main questions are here. When you're using a tool like NotebookLM, think about things like, are you entering anything sensitive, confidential, or personal? Do you have the right to use that material in this way? And could the output that's being created amplify or create bias or any unfairness? And then think about the output, so how that output will be checked before it is shared. And if during this process of questioning anything raises a concern, that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to stop and not use the tool. It might mean just changing your approach. That might be perhaps choosing a different source, removing identifying details from the source that you want to use, or perhaps choosing to link to a source rather than uploading that source. So it's often safer to share a link to perhaps an open textbook or an open article instead of sort of downloading and then uploading that content. All right, now let's take a closer look at the R in secure rights protection. There's a question just popped into the chat there. Does NotebookLM use my data for training purposes? The guidance from Google at the moment is that no, it does not use your data for training purposes unless you choose to provide feedback. If you provide feedback, it will use that feedback and the content to help with that future training, but it does say that it de-identifies, so it doesn't link that output and that feedback to you as an individual. All right, so we're having a closer look at that R in secure. So copyright is actually one of the most common questions that people have when using tools like NotebookLM. And in this context, copyright considerations generally mostly relate to the material that we're choosing to upload. Before I mention some examples, just a note that it is helpful to separate two issues that are often mixed together here, and that is around data use and copyright. So we just had that question there about data use. And as I mentioned, Google's current guidance states that content uploaded to NotebookLM is not used to train its AI models unless you choose to provide feedback. So that is reassuring around data handling, but it doesn't remove our copyright responsibilities. In other words, even if the content isn't being used to train AI, we're still uploading material into a third-party platform. So the key question still remains, do we have the right to use this material in this way? And we find it helpful to kind of categorize content, and we've done that into three categories here. So the first is the usually safer to upload, and that'll include things like your own content, fictional examples you might have created, open educational resources, or other openly licensed material used within the license conditions, of course, and any other material you have permission to use. Then we have the check first category, and that might be things like open access journal articles, Creative Commons licensed videos, or any other third-party images or diagrams. And then we've got the avoid, the do not upload category, and that includes things like Charles Sturt teaching materials, subject content, and recordings. Any subscription resources and textbook chapters or paywalled content. So essentially anything you have to log in to access. So that would include library resources that you're having to log in to actually view. It also includes student work, grades or personal information, or confidential university material or unpublished research as well. If you are unsure, the safest thing to do is choose a lower risk option, and that includes that openly licensed content, perhaps creating a short teaching note for yourself that you can upload, or just using content you have permission to use. And if you're still unsure, you can seek copyright advice. So get in touch with us here in the library, and we'll do our best to assist you. At that point, I just want to move away from our PowerPoint and pop into the library's Gen AI at University guide. And I just wanted to point out the copyright page within this guide. Hopefully you're all seeing that guide now. Yep, great, thank you. So this page within our guide has heaps of information about copyright and AI. So it's a really useful starting point if you've ever got any questions about copyright and AI. And if I scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see a new interactive checklist that's just been developed and published. And this helps you work through what content is appropriate to upload to an AI tool. And this was actually developed by Lorraine in collaboration with our copyright librarian. So it's tailored to Charles Sturt and aligns with guidance, including the secure framework. All right, so now we're going to move in and have a look at NotebookLM itself. We're going to start out by having a look at one of those lower risk examples using an open textbook. Okay. So I'll pop up to this is the landing page or login page for NotebookLM. So NotebookLM uses your Google account. There's not a separate, account or login to create here. So I'm just going to hit try NotebookLM and that'll log me in with my Google account. And you can see my little profile pic appears in the top right-hand side of the screen. Once you're logged in, you have the option on the top right-hand side to create a new notebook. And we've actually opened up on the featured notebooks page. And if you haven't used NotebookLM before, these are great to have a look at. They give you a good idea of how to use the platform, the sorts of study support material or artifacts you can create. And there's some really interesting ones in here. There's even an introduction to NotebookLM. So this will help you learn how to use the platform itself. And I found one the other day that looks like it would be quite useful for students as well, the How to Study notebook. It's got lots of information in there about study skills and information literacy skills sort of developed for university students. So that might be useful. But in our first example, we're going to have a look at an open textbook, which is an open educational resource. We're actually going to look at a textbook that's been developed by a non-profit organisation called OpenStax. So OpenStax is a provider of high-quality peer-reviewed open textbooks. Because these textbooks are openly licensed, they're a really useful example of how open content can be paired with Gen AI to create those extra study supports. And Google has actually partnered with OpenStax to create public NotebookLM notebooks from selected OpenStax titles. What you're seeing at the moment is just a blog post that talks a little bit about that initiative and the partnership, and provides links out to the notebooks that have been developed based on these open textbooks. So we'll have a look at one of those, biology. And that's opening up in a notebook. And this is what all notebooks look like in this platform. We have the three panels. We have sources to the left. We have the summary or chat panel in the middle. And we have the studio panel on the right-hand side. So the sources, this is where you can see the sources that have been uploaded to this notebook. And as mentioned, these are all preloaded. So it's got the full content of the open textbook already within. You can have a look at a bit more detail if you click on one of the titles of the sources, and you should get the full source information provided in that panel. As mentioned, we've got the summary panel in the middle, and then there's a prompt or question box as well, so we can sort of investigate the source. And over on the right, that studio panel where you can see the artifacts. I might just pop in a really quick question prompt here, just to show you how that works. And what I'm doing here is just asking NotebookLM to compare some concepts that are covered by this source and to present the information in a particular format. And I'm also asking it to provide citations so we can trace back to the original content. And while it's developing that output, let's have a look at the type of artifacts in the right-hand panel here in the studio. You can see there's a whole range here. There are mind maps, there's infographics, there's videos, there's audio overviews as well. This audio introduction is quite interesting as well. So you can create podcasts, and within these featured notebooks, these podcasts have already been produced, and that gives an overview of the source. But this is quite interesting because you can actually ask questions in this mode using your audio. So you can ask questions of the AI presenters and it'll give you some information. All right, let's go back to the middle panel. And you can see we've got a response to our prompt there. It's presented the information in a table. We've got citations so we can trace back to the source. And you can see there's an option to copy that information as well. So you could copy it out of here and pop it into a document to have a look at later. So all sorts of really useful study supports that can be created in the platform. All right, so now I'm going to stop and I'm going to hand over to Lorraine, who's going to start by having a look at how NotebookLM can be used by students as a study tool. Thanks, Lorraine. I'll stop sharing.
Great, thanks, Beck. I'll just share my screen. So just a couple more PowerPoints, but then we'll get on to some more demos. And we're hoping to also have some time where you guys can have a go at it as well. So for students, NotebookLM is often most useful as a study and revision tool. And students could do things like upload their notes that they take from a lecture, or maybe upload their notes that they've made as their reading course content. And then they can create interactive study guides, generate some quizzes, engage in an AI-driven discussion about the material that they've uploaded. So other examples that students might use NotebookLM for is to build a glossary of approved materials. They could generate some practice questions, create flashcards, produce revision checklists, or ask for explanations at different levels of complexity. They can create and listen to a podcast summary, as someone said in the chat. As they're driving to uni, they could be listening to their podcast based off their notes. So these are examples of uses that support learning without replacing it. And students will still need to engage with the source materials themselves. They still need to analyse that information, apply concepts, evaluate evidence, and follow any assessment requirements. But these AI-generated outputs can be really helpful learning aids. And we've got to still remember, though, they're not scholarly sources and they don't replace academic work. So a simple message which is written on this slide is that we could give students is that you can use NotebookLM to support your understanding and revision of permitted materials, use it to help you learn, but do not replace the learning process with these types of tools. And I guess what you're all here today for is maybe some ideas on how you could use NotebookLM in your teaching. You've had a glimpse of it so far with what Beck showed you, and I'll show you some more demos shortly, but ideas could be that you create some first drafts of revision questions, some tutorial prompts, maybe some glossaries, some learning activities, or plain language explanations, or some pre-class study materials. So the value we think in NotebookLM is that it's not going to produce a finished resource, but it could give you a really good starting point that then you can review, adapt, enhance, and use your disciplinary knowledge and teaching expertise to use that resource and create something else. So I think of it like a bit of a brainstorming tool as well. Now, with any AI tool, prompts are always important, and prompts are again important in NotebookLM. We can create, the better prompts we create, the better outputs we're going to get. So prompts that we need to think about when we're inputting into NotebookLM can be what source the tool should use. So we can select which of the sources we've uploaded that we want the tool to answer from, who the students are, what learning outcome is being addressed, maybe what the format is, or what checks should be applied as well. So for example, a prompt could be, rather than just asking for a quiz, we might ask for five first-year revision questions aligned to a specific topic, and then based only on the supplied sources or the sources we've selected, have answers that encourage students to revisit the original material. So this approach would then keep the source material, the learning outcomes, and our academic judgment at the centre of the process. Now, I guess a couple of notes about sharing all of this content as well. And as I demo, I'll show you where all the share buttons are. There's a couple of things you can do. So Beck showed a public notebook. Your notebooks are private until you decide otherwise. You can share the private notebook, so you can share an entire notebook with a student. They do need a Google account to access that. Now, when you create a notebook, there's certain artifacts that are created within it, and some of those artifacts will be downloadable. So, for example, an infographic, you could download that, maybe put it in your Brightspace site. A report, again, you can download it and use it elsewhere, edit it, for example. Some resources like quiz questions aren't downloadable, so you can only share them, but you can also copy and paste all the content into another document. So I'll show you that as we go through. So there's options for sharing notebooks or downloading resources. But let us get into some demonstrations now. So I'm in NotebookLM, and I'm going to create a new notebook, and I'm going to show you two different ways you potentially could use NotebookLM and create new notebooks. So we've got a brand new notebook, it's all blank, and immediately what is coming up is asking, what do I want to upload? It needs some content to start working. And we've got a couple of options here. We can search the web, or we can upload a file. So the first example I'm going to show you is I've got a fictional case study that I want to upload. And from this, I might, I'll ask some questions. Maybe I want to generate some quiz questions or flashcards or a podcast from it. So the resource is now uploaded. I can see that on the left-hand side. And in the middle panel, it's immediately given me a summary of the resource. And it's also given me some different prompts that maybe I want to interact with. What I want to do from this resource is to create some discussion questions. Maybe I want to use this case study at a tutorial, and I want some discussion questions to talk about with the students. So I put in my prompt, create 5 discussion questions. Students could answer after engaging with the fictional case study. I've given specific instructions here, so don't summarize the whole source, do not quote directly from it, and include a reminder that students should return to the original source and cite or acknowledge it as required. So I will send that prompt off now. While it is working, I'll show you a little bit about the right-hand panel. And this is the artifacts that we can create from this uploaded source. So for example, there's the audio overview. Now I can click that audio overview and it will generate a podcast. I can also, if I click the arrow next to it, it actually goes into the settings for the audio overview. And so it gives me a number of different options to create a podcast. So I could do the deep dive, brief. Now the debate one's quite interesting because I've done that a couple of times and the podcasters almost have an argument. So it's quite interesting. So you can choose these, the length. If I have more than one source, I could actually choose the sources I wanted to use for the podcast. and then you can generate that podcast. Now, it takes a little bit of time to generate a podcast. I'll let that run. While I'm talking about these artifacts that you can create on the right-hand side, I should probably just touch on the limits. So this is the free version of NotebookLM, and it does have some very generous limits. So you can create 50 notebooks, and within notebooks, you can ask 100. Sorry, you can create 100 notebooks, and within notebooks, you can have 50 sources. So I could add 50 different PDFs or links on this left-hand side. With the free tier of NotebookLM, you can have 50 chats per day. So that's entering in the chats down here. And you get 3 audio overviews per day. And I think it's about, they don't often disclose how many of these other video overviews you can get per day. But I think with the reports and infographics and quizzes, you get about 10 as your limit. So it's fairly generous, I think, for the free version. So just while that audio overview's going as well, let's have a look at our other options here. So we can create slide decks. Video overviews are quite good. It's about a 10-minute or 7-minute video that they create. Mind maps, reports, flashcards, quizzes, infographics, I think are very cool. And once again, if I click on the arrow, it gives me all the options of how I can create that infographic. So what style do I want? And detailed or concise, so all of those things. And you can actually also write prompts to say, give it a bit more of an instruction. Actually, that I should have mentioned that with the audio overview, one of the prompts I write for that is, can you try to put an Australian accent on your podcasters? Doesn't work perfectly, but it does maybe dampen that American accent down a little, which is always nice. And yes, so back to our middle panel where we have asked it for our discussion points. You'll notice here it is pinpointing where it's getting the information from, which is great. So I can go back and check and make sure that's accurate. And here, yep, that's where it's got the information from my fictional case study. So that is just one example of creating a notebook with something you're going to upload. But I want to show you the other way you could use NotebookLM. So I'm again starting a new notebook, and this time I'm going to search for content on the web. And in this box, I'm just putting some prompts. So look, I'm brainstorming. I want to create a lesson about paramedic management of pediatric cases. It is then searching the web for relevant material, and it won't upload everything, which is great. It's going to give me a choice of what I want to upload. So over here on the left, it's found these sources that could be relevant. Now I can investigate these, so I can link out to these. If I click this arrow here, it will open it in a new tab, so I can have a look and analyze these and see if they're what I actually want. So I can see a lot of them are resources from PubMed. I've got one here from BMJ, some clinical guidelines. These all look pretty good. If there was something that I didn't want, so just say this one here, I don't want it, so I can untick that box and decide exactly what I want, and then I import those sources into the notebook. And now any questions I ask will only be based on those sources, and I can continually add more sources as well as we go. As I said before, 50 sources per notebook, which I think is pretty generous amount. So it is uploading all of these, and now we can engage with these sources. So once it's finishing uploading, it'll give me a little bit of a summary, but I can start to engage with them once it's finished. I could also start using all these artifacts on the right-hand side as well. Just give that, I might just not upload these ones to make it quicker. You can also, if I saw some of these and I go, oh, I actually don't want that anymore, you can delete these as well to get rid of them. So it's all very fluid with the sources. Actually, because that's taking a while, I'll go back to my demo one that I've already created and show you. So this was a slightly different topic, but this one was about shared decision making in healthcare. So I just searched the web, I got a whole lot of different sources, added them in, and then I started asking some questions about it. So I wanted to know the current state of shared decision making in healthcare, and it gave me a summary based on the sources and pinpointed where it got that information from as well. So just say I'm interested in this share approach, I can go, oh, that's from source 11. I might go in and read that source. Then I can ask some more questions. So only using the selected sources, create a short study guide for students. I wanted to include the key concepts, common misconceptions, and 3 revision questions. And then it's created this study guide. Now, whenever it creates anything as well, you can, after it creates it, you can save that as a note. And what that does is put it over in your artifacts column on the right and saves it there. Now, that note that we just saved, I can export that to docs. So that's just a way to get that out of NotebookLM without having to share the whole notebook. And while we're talking about sharing, you can see the share functionality at the top here. This is where you can share with different people or anyone with a link. But just a reminder, they do need to have a Google account to be able to access the notebook. You can see some other artifacts that have been already produced here. I always love to show the infographic artifact. I think that's really cool. And once again, this is something you can download, this infographic. So it might be something that you use in Brightspace. And we've got our podcasts that have been generated here. This one here has the interactive feature. So that's where you can chat with the podcasters as well, ask them questions. So, and where I've got quizzes somewhere as well I was going to show. I don't think it's in this notebook, but yeah, quizzes and flashcards are all really good other sources that you can create. So we could create a quiz and that supplements this study guide here for students. So that was a few ways to use NotebookLM. What we would love to do now is to get you all to have a go and ask us questions if you get stuck, or tell us how you're using NotebookLM already. But Beck is going to upload some different sources to the chat. So there's a couple of different options for you to go in and use NotebookLM. We're going to upload that case study that I used previously to the chat. So if you wanted to create a notebook and just use that case study, go for it. Or maybe you want to create a notebook and search the web and find some sources. By all means do that. Maybe you've got some other notes. You know, if you've been to a conference recently and got a pile of notes in a Word document, upload those and ask questions about the conference. So we are going to hand it over to you now and give you about 5 minutes to have a go and try to create some kind of artifact. And by all means, ask.
Lachlan's got a question, Lorraine.
Yep.
Just with that example you had of, you know, your infographic, etc., or learning objects that are generated within the notebook, like when you're in this kind of creation phase, etc., can they be discreetly, shall we say, exported, shared from within it, or they can be, for example? Like...
Yes, some can, some can't. So let's have a look at, hang on, I'll find one that I've done a few different. I think it was, sorry, I have lots of notebooks, as you can see. Where's my other, there, this demo here. So this is the case study and I've created a whole lot of artifacts here on the right-hand side. So here's the mind map artifact, and some of them can be exported. This one can't be. So this one can be shared, but you can't export this. So if we go back to the studio, this is the infographic and it can be downloaded. So yes, it's okay. The quiz, it can only be shared. So let's just have a quick look at what the quiz looks like. It's
an interactive.
Quite good.
Yeah, right.
Interactive. And so I guess what you only can share this, you can't download it, but maybe you could copy and paste the different answers and move them into Brightspace. And the flashcards, they can be exported. So it really varies. Some can, some can't. So these flashcards here, we can, I'm sure there was, oh yeah, we can download the set here.
And when someone else accesses a notebook that's been shared, as far as engaging with the sources that have been used to create it, does the visitor have access to the sources in the same way, or is that just the creator?
It's a bit like what Beck showed with the OER. So you have access to the sources on the left, and you can interact with them by typing prompts in the middle panel, and then you can interact with these studios, but this panel in the top right won't appear. I don't think they'll be able to make their own artifacts from it. It'll just be sort of what's already there.
Right, and they can't appropriate the material that's been used in there in the first instance, for example. So it's, as a visitor, like I couldn't go in there and then download all of the sources that had been used as well, like that PDF on the left, for example. As a visitor, I'm just assuming they can't come in there and say, oh, well, I'll grab that.
I think they might. Can you download? Yeah, that's a good question. I'd have to find out if they could download that. I mean, what they...
Lorraine, I think, sorry, just to jump in there, I think I've been using this with some research groups that are both in the university and outside the uni, and I've found that you can share the whole notebook or you can share an artifact. So you can just share the podcast or the stroke quiz, for example, or you can share the whole notebook. And when you share the whole notebook, you've got the option of saying whether you want them to be able to edit or just view. And if you're doing it with a research group where you trust everybody and everybody's sharing resources, then you want them to edit it. But for teaching, you might just want them to view. Yeah. Does that make sense?
So, yeah. So that's good to know.
So it almost becomes almost a wiki in that sense, if you're allowing them to edit and make adjustments to it and change it in that space. So it's a collaborative piece. Yeah.
Could do. Yes, I'd love to see somebody do that. If you're up for it, Lachlan. When you've got it, share it.
I'm just learning this morning, but who knows what tomorrow may bring.
Yeah.
We did hear from a number of people at the beginning when Beck asked the question about who else is using it. So if any of you would like to chime in at this point while people are playing to talk about your own, what you've been doing with it, I think the rest of us would love to hear about it. Nikki.
We're using it for subject readings, which I'm now really concerned about, and we'll need to go through and use the checklist to check the copyright. But in Principles of Inclusive Education, we have, for each of the readings, we have an AI generated using LM Notebook infographic of the reading. We have a link to the required reading, other ways to engage with the article. So optional, a podcast where there's two people talking about it and we've checked it for accuracy. There's we have a key vocabulary and we have a video as well. It's not, just building on that. But students really do love it. Particularly in this subject where we're talking about, having choice with how you engage with the content and how you understand the content. So, yeah, Nat Thompson's been amazing with that. I just need to check the copyright and make sure we haven't done anything silly. But, yeah, students love it.
And so are you sharing the whole notebook with the
No,
students?
no.
Just the artifacts?
Yes, just some of the artifacts.
Yep.
We sometimes also have a quiz for it as well, which is really good. Yeah. Lots of positive feedback.
Great.
So does that mean as well that you're sort of taking the students through how to build within it, or is it more kind of a self-discovery thing? They're just looking at the outputs rather than the interface? Like what sort of aspect are you doing together in that space?
Not really anything. It's how I'll put them in the chat, but it's how they can choose how they engage with the subject reading. So that, they might listen to the podcast, or they might actually just do the reading or the key vocabulary. It's sort of bringing out key points. But I'll just take some screenshots and share that in the chat. But like I mentioned, I'm a bit concerned now about the copyright.
So Nikki, are you putting the links into Brightspace, or are you sharing them through an announcement, or
Brightspace?
Right, through Brightspace. Right.
Yes.
Okay. That's
so yeah, every section we have an engage part, which is where the subject readings are. Yes. And so, we've got a really structured format so the students know exactly where to go for the readings. I'm just looking for that other screenshot I took.
Yeah, I've been using NotebookLM mostly for research purposes rather than for teaching, because that's sort of where I'm at the moment. But for research, I'm doing things, if I want to get my head around a new, I'm using it as a student would actually, I think, in some ways. And I have been thinking about encouraging students in the future to use it this way. But I'll go through to Consensus, which is the search database, but the search process that'll search 200,000 or however many million academic articles, identify 10 articles that are on a theme that I want to get my head around better, import them into NotebookLM, and then get them to provide a digest for me or a summary, or you can ask it questions like, where's the research gap in this literature? Don't tell the HDR students that one, but I thought that was quite a useful question to ask it and things like that. So yeah, I'm finding it useful in that sense to get my head around stuff quickly.
Yeah, and there's some functionality with the artifacts where you can produce a data table as well based on the articles that you upload. So that, and research reports as well. So they can be quite useful for research. But yeah, I agree. I think this would be a really good resource for students to be using if they're uploading their lecture notes, their reading notes. Those are all safe, permitted sources as well, and then get some good summaries, and some quizzes to test their understanding as well. And I'm also wondering whether the interactive part with the audio podcasts might be really useful if they're preparing for their Vivas and things too, so they could use it that way. Oh, we've got a hand up there. Is that Nikki? Is it? Oh, sorry, I can't see the full. No, hands down.
It was me from before.
Yeah. So how's everyone going with their own play around? Has anyone hit any stumbling blocks? Has anyone managed to upload something or search the web and create an artifact?
I've just been playing and just created I actually had never created an infographic.
I think we're getting a different mic from you, Kath.
Oh, sorry. Oh, how about if I actually pull my mic down?
Yeah,
that'll do it. That'll do it. I've never actually done an infographic, so they're actually really cool. That's really nice. And I've just got to say, Nikki, I feel like, I think it's kind of maybe a little bit of the AI shame a little bit as well, because I've been using it a lot
particularly because when writing modules, that I need to just kind of collate lots of information and getting some ideas. But I'm like, oh, I can't use any of this in teaching because, you know, is that allowed? But once you start looking at those infographics and things, you're like, that actually could just be really just useful. But out of all the AI kind of things, Google LM is the one that just seems to make up the least amount of things. And I think, like Lorraine put in her prompt, the more specific you are, that says, do not use anything else other than the words in this, you know, article. And once you, you know, it makes it a lot easier. But Larissa has also now sent me down this Google Pinpoint. Seriously, that's the end of my day. It's all gone. Anyway, it's all good. It's good though.
I can save that for Friday afternoons. It's my little, what can I find in AI now?
Oh, it's just incredible. And I just love that. Yeah, so anybody who knows me knows that I have narcolepsy, and there is nothing that is quicker than putting me to sleep than having to read through lots and lots of research papers. So as much as, and I just, the ones that I do read through need to be the right ones. And I've just found AI so amazing for just being able to say, go through all of these, and I just want the ones that cover this the most. And then I can focus on the key ones. So, but I've found, yeah, Google LM is my favorite one.
One thing I did want to mention that's appeared on this page that I'm on now is there was talk about, is what you put into NotebookLM private? And yes, it is, unless you give feedback. And I just wanted to note that these thumbs up and thumbs down are the feedback as well. So if you go and hit your thumbs up, that's then saying, yep, I'm giving feedback, and Google will start using it. So just be mindful of that.
And the thing I have to go back and check is, I feel like this, you know, Beck Fabry's like pointing her finger at me. I had never thought about what was freely available and what's behind firewalls in terms of copyright. So might need to reassess what I am uploading.
Yes, me too.
Have I done any huge amount of damage by already having uploaded things that were probably behind a firewall? My bad. I'm really sorry.
Honestly, it's a really complex space, and I reckon that, you know, everybody is perhaps, you know, coming across these questions in their mind, and you can just imagine how students are using these tools as well. That with you know, they would have less, you know, copyright understanding than we do.
Yeah.
Can we make a comment re Copilot versus NotebookLM about uploading content? Yeah. So yeah, I guess keep in mind that we do still have that enterprise version of Copilot available, and that is the one that is okay to upload sort of your any CSU copyrighted content, your subject materials, that sort of thing. If you are logged in with your CSU username and password, that Copilot platform is okay for that purpose. It'd be nice if we had the education version of NotebookLM, but we don't.
Yeah, I guess I'd be interested in a broader clarification around why this versus this, and if it's something as mundane as, oh, the servers for that are located in a particular place that we're comfortable with, as opposed to where we're not comfortable with, like, just to get that point of clarification.
I think we're using Copilot because everything we do is based on Microsoft here. Other institutions where they are perhaps in the Google Education Workspace rather than Microsoft, they then have access to the Google products instead. I don't know full details of that, but that's my understanding.
This one and the education version?
The education version would be a little bit more like our enterprise version of Copilot, I think.
Yeah.
So it would be a little bit more, a little bit safer when uploading content, and we would probably have sort of increased limits in usage as well.
And just back to our copyright library guide, we've got the tool check at the top, but where you can answer the questions about what you're actually uploading. But if you scroll down further there, we've got a quick reference about the different types of AI. And so, for example, Google Notebook, it's covered by Google's general terms of service versus the Microsoft Copilot enterprise version. It's got the nice green tag there. We don't have to sub-license uploads with that. So you can go in and have a look at all these different tools here. So did anyone get stuck with NotebookLM, or you're all able to log in and create something?
You can always take away those examples we've popped in the chat too and try them later if you like. And, you know, please feel free to contact us anytime if you've got questions.
Yes. I guess we can start to wrap up now if there's no more questions or comments. On this slide, and we'll put the slides in the chat, there's a collection of useful links and also Google's help and privacy information. It's always really good to go in and look at the privacy policies of all the AI tools you use, and they're changing all the time, so keep track of them. But it's really important to understand what is happening with what you upload. So at the moment, Google's saying it's not using what you upload to train itself unless you give feedback, but that could change too. So we do need to keep an eye on these things. We've also got examples of public notebooks in the OpenStack resources in these links, and Charles Sturt's guidance on Gen AI, copyright, AI tools, and the secure framework. So these are all really good places to explore if you'd like to continue experimenting after today's session. And really what our takeaway is from today is that we wanted to say that effective use of NotebookLM starts well before you write the prompt. So it's about starting with the teaching purpose, but also asking yourself what you're trying to achieve for student learning. Then choose the appropriate sources, apply the secure framework before uploading or selecting any material, and review anything the tool produces before sharing it with students. So it's pretty good now. It doesn't produce hallucinations because it's using the sources that you've uploaded, but still you should review the content to make sure it is summarizing and getting the correct nuances. So throughout today's examples, we've seen that NotebookLM can be very good at helping us to organise, transform and interact with information, but what it can't do is make the teaching decisions for you. So it doesn't know your students, your learning outcomes or your discipline context, or the learning experiences that you're trying to create. So those decisions need to remain with people. So we still need human oversight with these AI tools, and they're also where your expertise makes the greatest contribution. So NotebookLM and similar tools don't replace teaching, but they're tools that can support parts of the process, helping to give you hopefully more time on things that matter most: learning design, the feedback, critical thinking and student engagement. But thank you very much for joining us today, and I'd encourage you all to continue exploring with low risk permitted sources in NotebookLM, and we'd also love to keep hearing your ideas on how you're using it as well. If you've ever got any questions about copyright or privacy or intended use cases, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Thank you to both Beck and Lorraine for the session today. I think everyone in here got a lot out of it, and will no doubt be spending the rest of the day playing in this space. Or that could just be me. So thank you both, and I'll stop the recording there. Have a great rest of the week to the rest of you.
Thanks, everyone. See you.
Thanks. Bye.